Guys, back with another Portable Clint. Guys, I've been seeing this guy in waiting rooms for years, literally almost 20 years, 30 years, I don't know, for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, and I hope I say your last name right, because I was going to ask you before we started, Jim Meskimen.
That's correct.
I said it right?
Yeah, that's right, with a Corpus Christi accent.
Yeah, look at you, man. Look at you. Oh, wow, okay. All right, Jim.
My theory about my last name, I don't know if it's true, and everybody who would know the truth is long dead, but it came from McSimmons, Scotch-Irish, and probably when they got to Texas, they just said, "What's your name, Meskimen?"
Are you serious,
Yeah,
really?
my dad was from Texas, yeah. That's my theory, as I say.
And what part of Texas again?
Big Spring, Texas. Closest big town, I think, is San Antonio.
Okay, well, Jim, to interview you...
That's how I said it, San Antonio.
Yes.
That's the right way to say it.
Look at you, man.
Not San Antonio.
San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Okay, Jim, to interview you, I have to go back further than you.
Okay. The Dark Ages.
The Dark Ages. Jim, your mom started in this business before you, is that correct?
Well, many, many decades before I. She's, yeah. She started in like 1950. Man, probably 1951, 52.
1952, and did she have any success in the business?
She did well.
She did. I'm being very sarcastic with that question. Your mom was Mrs. Cunningham.
Yeah.
In the Happy Days.
Mrs. C on the Happy Days, yeah.
How old was she when she booked that?
Good question. It's all in her book, My Days, Happy and Otherwise, which you can pick up at Barnes & Noble or online.
Okay.
Offhand, I would say she was at least 40.
Okay. How old was she when she had you?
30.
Okay, so 10 years.
10 years of hard slogging.
Okay, and then okay.
Working actress.
Working actress.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you know what it's like. And do you have children?
I do. I have two.
Okay,
two
so
beautiful
they know
girls.
what it's like too. I have a beautiful girl too, who's almost 30 now herself. So
I believe she has red hair. Like
that's
one,
right.
like because
She's
my
a ginger like you.
Yeah, because my youngest has red hair.
Oh, okay.
So you always
So we're
see.
related.
Yeah, there you
Like,
go.
I knew I recognize you from somewhere. All the ginger clubs. So so it was very interesting growing up with a working actress who was working, but not famous by any means. And then I got to see how, and Happy Days, by the way, evolved quite slowly compared to like shows of today. Back in those days, if you had a pilot and it sold, they would let sometimes the series go for a couple of years.
Sure.
And if it wasn't like a huge hit, they go, oh well, I guess we'll let it go. But meanwhile, you've done how many episodes,
Yeah, and now they'll just cancel overnight.
In the middle of the show.
Yeah.
So nobody's watching the show. Just turn it right off. So that was very interesting. Happy Days evolved very, very slowly because this is all in the book, and it's in Gary Marshall's book too.
Oh, wow.
I found very fascinating. Years after the fact, all I knew was Mom did a pilot, and that sounded really cool. And then, Mom's show got picked up. But in between time, there was about a year or more, perhaps. And what happened was the pilot didn't sell. It was shown on TV as part of Love American Style, that cool sex farce weekly sitcom.
Yes, I loved that show.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
So they showed it, they aired it, they didn't buy it, and it just went on the shelf. Then, as fate would have it, George Lucas was looking for someone to star in this little project he had, American Graffiti.
Never heard of it. Go ahead.
And he was somebody said, "What about Ron Howard?" He was like, "I don't know. Have we got any? Do you have anything to see? Can we see Ron Howard in a kind of a '50s mock-up?" And so somebody took it off the shelf and said, "Well, here's what it is." I think it was who was the head of Paramount at that time was Eisner.
Okay.
And,
Michael Eisner.
Michael Eisner said, "Hey, well, we got Ronnie Howard in this pilot. Take a look at that." So on the strength of that, George Lucas met with Ron Howard, hired Ron Howard. American Graffiti became a huge hit, and then Paramount and Michael Eisner went, "Wait a minute, we got a pilot here with Ron Howard in the '50s."
Wow.
And so that's why it finally got on the air. And then it was a couple of years before. Well, it was single camera. Then in the third season when it went to multicam, that's when it became a hit. So it's this weird, long, slow evolution, which I don't think will be ever repeated again.
Okay, let me ask you something. You were 10 years old when your mom booked this pilot.
Yeah, 10 or 11, yeah.
Was your mom a struggling actress
Yeah.
before those
Raising
10 years?
two kids on her own, divorced. We were living on whatever, commercials and guest spots on Mannix and Longstreet and Mission Impossible.
Did you notice your mom struggling as an actress? Like, could you see the difference in her? Like, my kids know when I book a job.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a big difference around the house.
Yeah, sure.
Did you notice the big difference in the house?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. My mother was very brave, very tough, and determined, but tender also. And at home was where she would show her feelings.
Okay.
So there were a lot of tears. I'll be honest. It was not uncommon to come for my mother to suddenly start crying, and I'd go, "Mom, what are you doing?" And I didn't think much of it.
Yeah.
And that all stopped pretty much when she eventually became this iconic person and grew to have her own confidence. But I mean, it was really tough. I mean, you're married. I'm married. We raised one child. It was very difficult.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Raising two on your own on an actress's pay.
Yeah.
Because she never did anything else. It's phenomenal. It's a great story. As I say, pick up her book. It's really
okay. So you grow up. You're 10 and 11.
Mm-hmm.
And when do you start getting the acting bug?
Well, I always was infected with it, but I didn't. It didn't bloom. I never broke out in it for quite a while because I also had an interest in being a cartoonist,
Okay.
and a visual artist. I wanted to be a painter or illustrator or something, and so I pursued that on my own and taught myself. And I was as interested in that as I was in other forms of expression. So, whereas I like doing voices and plays and
we haven't even
skits and
got to that. I mean, the
Yeah,
voices.
we
I
never
mean,
get to it.
we're going to be so many. We have so many hats, literally,
boring
in this
story.
business. You
Yes.
have many hats.
Yeah, to cover my head.
Yeah, let me say something. I don't know if you know this. You have 256 IMDb credits. That's great.
Sounds about right.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a big number, man. Okay, your first credit was 1987. Do you know that?
Really?
Yeah. Well, that's your first credit on IMDb.
I wonder what that was.
So,
87. Well, I did tons of commercials before then. I even did a thing which is not on IMDb, which is my actual should be my first credit. Well, actually, I was on an episode of Happy Days in 1977. That should be on there. I wonder why it isn't.
I mean, okay, well, let's go
I
back.
got a little spot on Happy Days.
How?
It's the Fonzie jumps the shark episode.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was there.
Jumping the shark. Still, a lot of people don't know about that saying.
No? Okay.
I mean, because I just told my best friend the other day, he never heard of that expression. Everybody in the business knows.
It's a common thing, yeah. And what does it mean to you? When
It
a show has
means-
jumped the shark.
Joe has jumped a shark, meaning they're so far. They have no more ideas that they got to get a pink lady jumping a shark, and that means they have no more ideas.
Yeah.
What
They're
is
just
it?
doing whatever. They're pulling in
pulling in.
crazy stunt casting, guest stars and stuff.
What does it mean to you?
Well, so it came out of that show, right? The Happy Days show, and I was one of the kids on the beach in that episode, and I run up and I say, I announced the shark. I say, they got a shark out there. They got it pinned up until Marineland can come and pick it up.
That's your
until
line?
Marineland can come and pick it up, like they do.
Right.
Oh my God, Marineland doesn't even exist anymore. Now it's Terranea Resort. But so that's gives the excuse for Fonzie to water ski over the shark
While wearing his leather jacket and wearing shorts.
Oh my God! So it was a two-part episode. The Cunninghams go to Los Angeles, and for me it was a summer job. My mom had obviously got me this job and said, "Hey, you're going to be on the show."
How did she get it? How did she get it?
She just shamed them. I'm sure she just went to Bobby Hoffman, who I think was the casting director, and said, "Can Jim be in the show?" And they knew me. So.
Okay, but was it one of those things, Jim, where you were asking your mom, can you get me on the show? Or was your mom always kind of looking out to get her kids on the show?
I think it's a little of both. I think I was I was not ambitious particularly, and I don't think I don't recall really needling her to get me on the show, which is very different from what I would do today. But anyway, and I know that she is always trying to get us in and help us get our SAG card and help us get some money. And I was 17 at the time, so I probably misspent it pretty possibly.
Well, yeah, the same here. I'm still misspending.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jim, you do this. Is that your first gig?
I think that's my first professional gig. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say about that, something that's interesting that was pointed out to me by my late stepfather was that we talk about jumping the shark, Happy Days jumping the shark, and while the show has run out of ideas, he reminded me that was the 5th season of 11.
Really?
That surprised me.
So that surprises me too, because
Yeah.
I thought, okay, that's season
They still have a lot
11,
of
and
sharks
this is
in
the
them.
last.
Yeah.
Wow. That's it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that is very interesting.
Little
So they
anecdote.
went 6 more years after that, after jumping the shark.
So there is life after
Yes.
a jump shark.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That's good to know, Jim. Okay, so Jim, do you have the acting bug now? Do you? First
Yes,
of all,
more than ever. I
More
have
than
the
ever.
acting bug now more than ever because I'm finally old enough to kind of understand. You know, it's art. And art, you think you know about art, you think you know about painting, you think you know about opera, whatever. You think you know about writing, and you find out, no, there's more. There's more. There's always more. It unfolds like the layers of an onion. And, you know, I thought I understood what acting was. I did tons of improv in New York. I've been in front of audiences most of my life, you know, and in front of a lot of cameras and microphones. But it just continues to unfold, and I'm studying acting now very intensely, and I'm liking it more than ever, and I'm finding it's much more open-ended and creative than I ever suspected. And I'm appreciating other actors more and other performances I see more, and I'm having a real renaissance in my interest in acting.
what made you revamp to go back into acting, even though you have 256 credits? A lot of people would go, dude, I don't need to dive in deeper. I think I get it. But you're bettering yourself.
Well, in this universe, things either get better or they get worse. They don't stay the same for long.
That's
So I generally try to, the things at least that I'm interested in or that I think are important to me and my family, I try to get better at them in some way. And sometimes you got to figure out how would that be. But in acting, it's rather simple for me because my wife runs a magnificent acting school that I like and I believe in very much. And I've sort of dabbled in it and stuck my toe in there a couple times. And I thought, well, you know, I know this stuff. I know all this. And then I find, no, there's more. And it's interesting. It's more interesting to me. So
Yeah.
I'm very happily diving in.
Jim, I don't know if you know this, but do you know that your wife was my wife once?
Oh, in a commercial.
Yes, beefsteak rye.
Beefsteak rye.
Yes,
With the bear.
With the bear.
I forgot that. Clint.
Yeah.
I forgot that. Yeah, and that's where I learned that bears are made to growl by throwing marshmallows at
Yeah,
them.
that's true.
Right?
That's
She
true.
told me that.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, Jim, I want to get past the happy days.
Yes,
So I'm
let's-
gonna have one more question.
Okay.
Did you grow up going to the set?
Well, I didn't go to the set all the time, but I went many, many times.
Okay,
So
that's all I wanted to know.
technically, yeah. I mean, that's where I met Ron Howard, and that eventually resulted in me.
We'll get to that in a sec. So you do that at 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
When do you move? When do you go? All right, Mom, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go do my own thing. I'm gonna be my own actor. When?
Oh, well, you know, I went to college like a lot of kids automatically did in
Okay.
the day. And looking back on it, I don't know. I went to college. I went to Santa Cruz. I went there because my girlfriend at the time was going to go. She bailed out and didn't go. So I went. The old bait and switch.
Sure.
And some very bad things happened to me there. Some very good things happened to me there. The good things, luckily, outweighed the bad and put me on a trajectory that I'm very happy about. So I wouldn't say I made a mistake in going to college, but I also didn't really decide about being an actor at that point. But I did plays. I didn't do classes, which I think was actually a positive thing.
Okay.
So I didn't get a lot of crazy techniques and theory in my head. I just would audition for plays. And because I could do accents, I would get in plays. Because they'd go, oh, your English accent is so great. Or, oh, your French accent is so great. We got to put you in the play. I'm like, all right, that's where I'm at. I play the old man, the funny, weird character. And my mimicry and my ability to do characters was what got me in front of audiences. But I didn't make a commitment to it. I just did it, and I did my art classes, and I did whatever you have to do to get through college. And I met a lot of girls.
There you go.
Yeah, that was an education.
Yeah.
And I got out of, actually towards the tail end of college. It's a long story, Clint, but I got invited to go to Spain to study painting with a Spanish painter, and that really changed my life.
Picasso?
No, he'd been dead.
Okay.
So I didn't even return his phone calls. So I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
You'd be all dead like that.
Exactly.
There was a guy named Miguel Arguello. I've talked about him a lot, but I really I committed to being a painter, heavy, and I went for a couple of years to Spain.
That must have been fun to do that.
It was hard. I thought it would be fun too, but it was actually hard because we were living in a really medieval environment. And it's easy to say, but it was legitimately medieval. We had no phone. We had electricity, but we didn't have like refrigeration, and we didn't have toilets. And
But
we
that's
did a lot
all
of heavy
part
duty
of
painting. But that was all part of it.
Yeah, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm sorry, we got a little crowd here today. We don't normally have a crowd at the barn.
Oh, hey, they came to see.
They
Thank you
came
so
to-
much.
Yeah, so
God,
there you have it.
Great guys. Where did you bus in from? All the way from, really, from Durango.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
You want to move?
No, we're
just get
good. We're
them
good because they
Fly them
actually,
around?
No, they actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're about to go to The Price is Right. They're having a cocktail because that's the only time I ever see. 9 out of 10 times, there's no one ever at the bar at 10:45.
Yeah, but they're going to The Price is Right.
Yeah,
They're getting
yeah.
already.
Exactly. So please
The
excuse.
juice is right.
Yeah, so it may be a little loud just for a little bit, but we'll be okay. I always like the ruckus. That's why I call it Portable Clint,
Yeah.
because I
Portable
welcome everything that is thrown my way. Okay, so you're a painter. So tell me when the acting, when you start thinking.
Exactly. 'Cause
Please.
it's funny. I can actually pinpoint it to an afternoon.
Great, let me hear it.
Because all my life, my adult life, I've been kind of struggling with this painter, actor, and it was like the problem of my life that I felt like I had to solve, and I didn't at the time sort out that, well, you kind of could do both maybe, but in my 20s, I was 23, I'm like, I don't know, it's got to be one or the other, you got to go all in. So, living in Madrid, I'd moved from the countryside into the city of Madrid.
Beautiful.
For personal reasons, and beautiful town. You been there?
No, but I've heard of it.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. It's in the middle of Spain, and it's a sweet little, beautiful town. And I'm walking down the street, and I'm thinking about this movie that they're advertising at the time, which was The King of Comedy, the De Niro film.
Yeah, great
El Rey
movie.
de Comedia. They had this posters up all over it, The King of Comedy in Spanish. I'm like, boy, I really want to see that movie. It's coming out. I love that actor. I love that style, and blah, blah, blah. I swear to God, I walk down the street, and I run into Harvey Keitel, the actor.
Wow.
He just happens to be there filming a movie. And I stop him, and I talk to him for a couple of minutes. And he's very gracious, and speaks to me. What are you doing here? Oh, yeah, well, I'm here shooting a movie, blah, blah, blah. And we said goodbye, and I noticed my heart was just going.
Sure, yeah.
I was just excited as shit. And I was bright enough to go, that's interesting. I've been around a lot of painters, a lot of great painters, and been to the Prado Museum. This is different. I'm gonna do this. And it was on that day. I went, okay, good. Make plans, go to New York, and in like about a month, I moved to New York and started.
Jim, I want to parallel. They're starting to live. There we go.
Price is gonna be right soon.
Yeah, that's right.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Hope you get picked.
Remember, don't forget the surtax. Always have the surtax.
That is the big thing on The Price is Right,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
They get that tax. I don't want it.
23
Thank
cents.
you.
Oh.
Okay, Jim, I kind of want to parallel. There's something very big about you, and that is your voices. But I don't want to just talk about that. I want to talk about your career as an actor. But again, I don't want it to focus on this, but I want to parallel your career with your voices. When did you get started with your voices?
Well, I led with the voices.
You led with that.
I did. When I got to New York, I got a job as an illustrator. I worked freelance and just kicked around and did drawings for people and did cartoons and illustrations. And I got a job finally doing designed characters for the Thundercats show that was just starting off at that time, the animated show. And during that time, I was also studying improv.
Okay.
And in improv, I loved improv. It gave me something that suddenly releases a huge creative flood in you. And so I enjoyed performing and the ability to, they would call me out and say, okay, Mr. Reagan, you're blah, blah, blah. And I would, do the voice. And whatever they pulled out, I could usually do it real fast. And that I was like very valuable then to be in an improv company. And I got an improv company right away because I could do impressions. Then I also got like voice work, doing impressions. I did stuff for the early AMC or something. And this group, which is why I think this should be my first really decent credit on IMDb, it's not there, is I used to do weekly voiceovers for the McNeil Lair News Hour.
Oh, okay.
With my group Interplay, Christopher Smith and Tate Rupert, all those guys, and we would go into the studio every Thursday, and they would take the political cartoons of the day, and we would voice them as if they were animated. They weren't animated; they were just kind of pulling.
Sure.
Ken Burns them, and and that I did every week, and so I did Yeltsin and all the people of the time. I don't even remember now, but the stuff that would come up. So that was my in, and then I got a job. Also, once I stopped working for Rankin Bass as an illustrator, I went freelance with them. I said I can't do that. I did it for a year. I'm like, man, this is killing me. I got to do more. I was doing more commercials, and I got hired by them after an audition to do an animated series, one of very few that were being recorded in New York at the time. And I did 65 episodes of that, because that was they bought in bulk back then, and with the young Seth Green. And so my voice and ability to play characters.
Seth
vocally,
Green is awesome.
Yeah, another ginger.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus, this ginger. It's like the worst of Canadians. Oh, he's Canadian. He's a ginger. I know, I have eyes. He's a ginger Canadian. Oh, please.
Okay, all right. Wait, so Jim, when you were a kid, did you do the voices, or
Yes.
did you discover this when you... Hang on.
Train's going by.
This is going to
Collecting
take
the
a couple of
trays.
minutes. This is one of the loudest things about the show is that cart right
But
there.
that's the verisimilitude. That's how you know we're by the railroad.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I did as a kid. I was one of these kids who had a tape recorder and would do his own shows. And you talk to any voice actor worth his salt, he's that kid who did lots of little recording, heard his voice a lot. And I maintain that you have to record a lot, and you have to listen to your own voice and suffer through that a lot in order to gain familiarity with where are you starting from, what are you creating, and to get over the fact that people should listen to this.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Well, when you
another
were a kid,
discussion.
were you listening to Rich Little going, I'm sure everybody's
loved Rich
asked
Little,
you
yeah.
that. That's such an easy question.
No, it's not a common question.
Oh, it's not? Okay, good.
I remember, well, back then TV and entertainment was so different, right? So if I happen to be flipping with the remote or clack with the pliers on the Bakelite knob, and I stumbled upon Rich Little doing something, I felt like I had just struck gold. But I did not have the thought, here's what my career would be like.
Okay, that's
never
what I
thought
wanted
that.
to... Okay.
No, I just was like, ooh, and I loved it.
Okay. So you're back in New York. You're doing this show. You're doing how many cartoons did you do?
I did.
They're bought in
just
bulk.
one show called The Comic Strip, which had 2 parts.
I think the comic strip, by the way, is your first IMDb credit,
Okay, that one.
which was in '87.
That would have been 87.
87,
That's
and
it.
then from 87 to 94, there's nothing in there.
Nothing in there.
What's going on between those years?
I'm doing improv and I'm doing commercials.
Okay,
which don't appear on
in New
IMDb.
York, right?
And outside in Texas.
Okay.
I worked for Skaggs Alpha Beta as their spokesman
Sure.
for 5 years. I did all
Really?
their commercials.
On camera or
On camera
voice?
and radio.
Okay.
I made a fortune. It was just great.
Local-
Improvised.
Local commercials like that do pay the best.
Yeah. And it was fun and easy, and it was a dream job, and changed everything for me. It gave me a lot of confidence. And I did several campaigns like that for different companies over those years. So I was doing that. I was doing some radio. Radio used to be a big thing. I would do like 10 radio commercials a week for places, different companies. Now I'm lucky if I do one a month. Then I was also doing improv, and we were developing television shows and improv projects. We did an improvised Broadway musical. We had an improvised film that we wanted to do, and we went way down the road on that, and that went eventually nowhere. And we had 2 development deals for television shows, but this was before Whose Line,
Okay.
and nobody wanted to get bet on it. Nobody wanted to. We were
The
the best, and
sacrificial
nobody wanted
lamb is always the one
Yeah.
that, yeah.
So we got sacrificed twice. Towards the end of that, in '91, I got on Whose Line because the British show came to New York and they were looking for people. And they saw me and my friend Christopher, and they said, we'd like you to be on the show. And we were very kind of snooty about it because we'd been like splitting the atom with our improv, and they wanted to, slather up a piece of toast with peanut butter. And you're like, okay, well, fine. And so we did their little show, and I get recognized all the time
Really?
for that show. and that's in 1991.
Wow, man.
I don't
It's
know how
amazing
anybody
what
recognizes
people
me
remember,
now.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, 94 comes along. You
Yeah.
have a credit called The Paper,
Yeah.
directed by
Mr. Ron Howard.
Mr. Ron Howard.
Audition for Mr. Ron Howard.
Tell me, I know that people can only do so much in this business for you.
Yeah.
You still have to bring the talent for the studios to sign off.
Yeah.
It's not just one person who's going to make your career. It's the studio has to back it.
A lot of agreement has to happen.
What's that?
A lot of people have to sign
Yeah,
off.
exactly. So how do you get The Paper, which will be the first of 5 times that Ron Howard hires you?
I kidnapped one of his children.
Okay.
Later, he did this film Ransom. Basically, it's about me.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
well, Ron and I, I met Ron, as I say, when he was about 19 and I was about 13, and we knew of each other, and he'd come to my house for parties and stuff like that, and I'd been a precocious little kid, and he was on my mailing list forever. And so
What do you
he
mean
knew
by
of me.
mailing list? What do you mean, like, if you're tell me what that means?
Oh, well, when I moved to New York, I learned early on that I was going to need to keep in touch with everybody. There was
Yeah.
no internet. There was no computer. So what I did was...
Back in the 90s?
In the 80s?
In the 80s, I
80s?
meant?
It was- well, there might
the
have been-
joke would have been better if I would have said the 80s first. But go
Well,
ahead.
anyway, fine.
Okay, go
But
ahead.
you're right. I mean, there was no internet.
Okay.
We were not spamming each other.
Okay.
There was no Instagram. So I used to send out cartoons that I drew, and I had a contest, which I still run today, which is the cartoon contest, Captionist Cartoon Contest.
Oh, wow.
You can find it on Instagram. And I would draw a cartoon with no caption. I send it out to everybody, and I would pick a winner, and I would publish all the answers, and I'd send the winner a prize.
Look at you, man.
So Ron would always ask me, so what's the deal with this newsletter and the cartoon contest? What's that all about? I'd say, well, Ron, I'm just trying to keep in touch with people. So he actually came to see me in a one-man show that I did. And I was so shocked. I can't imagine he didn't have anything to do, but he didn't.
How did you find out he was in the audience? Did someone go, dude, Richie Cunningham's out there?
Probably said, Ron's here. I'm like, Ron's here? And I did his voice, and anyway, so he knew of me, and he was always very respectful and very kind and charitable. And so I think my agent at the time got me an audition for The Paper, and she said, it's for Ron Howard. I'm like, oh, great. And so I worked it, and I went in, and he was there. And I
were you hoping he was there, or were you kind of nervous if he was going to be there?
I wouldn't have been nervous, but I would definitely be hoping, like I would today, that he would be there, just for that personal, and be able to say, you want to, a little this, a little that, louder, funnier, faster, what do you want? So I did it once, and it was a nice little scene, a dialogue, which eventually was me and Marissa Tomei, but it was a kind of a pickup scene, and I didn't have the whole script, I just had the sides, right? And this happens all the time,
Sure.
right? You get the sides, something important that you don't know, because it's on page 30 and you're on page 74. And so in this pickup scene, he says, now, she's 9 months pregnant. I'm like, oh, changes the pickup scene a little bit.
Sure.
Now my character's like, what's the matter with my guy? He's picking up a married woman who's not... Anyway, so I tried to make a fast adjustment. Like, okay, actors have to do that. So I did the thing, and I just remember afterwards he said, that's good. Now, because we're in a bar, have him feeling it a little bit more, feeling the liquor a little bit more. I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, great.
That's a great note.
And then I did. It's a great note, and then and a great way to directing it. And then I did it, and afterwards I thought, I didn't honor that note at all. I completely forgot about it somehow. So I went home and I wrote on the script. I went, okay, here's what I'll do next time. If this ever happens again, listen to the director. If he says
that's always
this,
a good
this,
note.
Yeah, listen, do what he says if he's in the room. And I didn't think any more about it. And then, of course, you got the nice call. Well, you booked it. I'm like, you really? I went, oh my God. And that was my first film job. And even though I've been in front of camera a lot, many hours, maybe 100 hours of being in front of the camera, when it was a movie, suddenly I was nervous.
I bet, man.
And I sat in my trailer, and when I get nervous, I just get crabby.
Sure.
I used to anyway. It's
Sure,
like
yeah.
I got a short fuse, and everyone's pissing me off, and it's like, damn it, it's hell to be with. And I had to wait for a long time.
Like you
you
do.
always do,
Yeah.
right? And they were shooting Catherine O'Hara's scene first, and then my scene with Marissa Tomei, and when I finally get in there, I'm kind of wound up.
Sure.
It's like I've been waiting, Oscar winner, and my first movie, and I'm just like, oh, man. Luckily, they call action on this first take of my career as a film actor, and one of the extras in the bar drops some big thing of water or bottle and screws up the take, and I'm like, felt great relief.
Yeah.
I didn't mess it up.
Yeah.
It's all good. Now let's just take it from there.
There
And I
you
was
go,
fine
man.
then. I was fine.
Yeah, I know that feeling, man. That's a powerful feeling, knowing that. Okay, all right.
Okay, all right, we're good.
Okay,
Everything's possible.
you shoot the paper,
Yeah.
and you do 4 more with Ron Howard. How do you get those parts? Is it same way, audition? Does he call you up?
I auditioned one other time for him, and that was for,
Apollo 13?
no, it's for Ed TV.
Ed TV.
Ed TV had a massive cast, and it would be really interesting to see that movie now because it was on the cusp of the social media explosion.
Yeah.
And it presaged a lot of stuff that we have today, but it envisioned it in a totally new way. So hard to predict exactly the way social media would go. But it was about a guy who was being followed around by a TV show every minute.
Matthew
of the day.
McConaughey?
Matthew McConaughey. I worked with Matthew McConaughey on that movie. He's a countryman of yours, I know. Anyway, so that was an interesting experience. I got to work with Martin Landau. Anyway, so that was the only other time I actually auditioned for Ron, except, no, that's not true. I auditioned for a Ron Howard movie, not for Ron personally, for Frost Nixon.
Okay.
And they had me in, Jane Jenkins had me in to read for that part. And I didn't get the part I read for. I got a pretty small part in that movie, but I was happy to be part of it.
I bet, man.
Got to see Frank Langella work, Michael Sheen work, and got to watch Ron work more as a director with actors in a different way than I'd seen him. Because in Apollo 13, which was great, and I worked on that for a month,
Where did you film Apollo 13?
Universal.
And that was a month, and you were one of the guys, which you looked just like a guy from Mission Control.
Yeah. Maybe a little on the older side. A lot of those guys were young. They were in their 20s. I was 30-something by then.
That was a cast, like for us actors, we would go in there, oh my God, there's that guy, there's that guy. Oh, there's that guy.
That guy. Yeah. Voice actors. A lot of voice actors.
Really?
A lot of voice actors.
Why a lot of voice actors?
I don't know, it just worked out that way. I mean, guys that I guess they're working actors, so they do voice, they do everything. But a lot of guys I used to see later on doing radio and voiceover stuff. Andy Milder and Jeffrey Blake and
Andy Milder's great.
yeah, and he came on camera, series guy.
Wait, you're telling me that Andy started in voice before?
I don't know.
Okay.
You'd have to interview Andy.
Yeah.
Andy, you wanna be on the show?
I want to. Yeah, I do want to. Okay. But Apollo 13, you didn't have to audition. You just got a phone call.
I remember being on the phone with Ron's dad, who I knew.
Lance Howard? What's
Rance
Howard.
The late Rance Howard. And Rance said, Ron's doing a movie about the moon, from a book about the moon called Lost Moon, and the Apollo 13 program. So he told me about it, and then I got a call with an offer. And at the time, it was so loose, it was like, have a look at these two parts, Ecom and Tell Me, two different posts on Mission Control, and tell me which one you'd be interested in. So I looked and thought, this one has more lines, I'd like that one. That part went to Clint Howard.
Really?
Yeah, and he did a great job.
Do you know Clint Howard well?
I know him pretty well. I haven't seen him lately. We're in different circles, but you must know him.
No, I don't. I just know we just share the first name.
That's right.
Okay, you do that. Tell me 256 credits from 94 to
I'm getting exhausted
2019.
thinking of it. Yeah, it's all different kinds of things. That's me walking in a movie and saying one line, or even just doing a, and it's animated series, a whole like brace of series. It's video games. It's everything except commercials and live shows.
Okay, I'm going to pull over here for a second. I want to talk to you about something that you do, which a casting director has told me to do, but I have not done it. You invested in a toupee.
Yes, I did. I learned on the Grinch that this is my actual head.
Here's my actual head.
Based on a real head. My grandfather's actually. based on my grandfather's head. When I had an agent one time that said, you should try to go for a little fuller haircut. I'm like, what? Because I was losing my hair pretty badly. He said, a little fuller. Are you talking about a wig? And he said, yeah. And I went, no, because my reality was toupees look like shit.
Okay, well, wait, before you get into this, let me just tell you something. You have a great looking one because it's not a full head of hair. It's sort of like, dude, he could be losing it. I don't know if he is or not, but it looks real, it looks legit.
So here's the story. So I'm on The Grinch, and my character was the cop. And for whatever reason, they thought, every now and then that cop's going to take his hat off and he should have some hair. So they made me a beautiful piece, which I think I wore it once in 4 months of shooting. But I was so in love with it, and I remember being so amazed because as a bald person, in my dreams, I used to dream of having hair again, like a person who's been shot down over Vietnam dreams of having legs. I would dream of having hair. It's so pathetic. But I remember just staring at myself in the mirror and going, this is amazing. So there's this whole technology of hairpiece wig making that has existed since the days of the Vienna Opera and before, and which still is a high art today. And I met and hired eventually the woman that made that wig, whose name is Renata, and she is the best in Hollywood. She's a little old, wonderful old lady she's from Austria, I think, and terrific. And she is the woman who, by the way, Terry Garr based her accent on for the Frankenstein.
Really?
Frankenstein movie was this woman.
Wow.
So I go to her, and I've gone to her now for probably 15 years, and she's, makes a mold of my head, and it's perfectly done. And the point is, it doesn't look like a hairpiece, it looks like a head of hair.
Absolutely.
And that is like what, famous actors that we could mention that wear wigs all the time. Your John Malkovich's, your Elton John's, your...
well, there's one I want to say, Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob
Thornton played around with it for a while, and then one day he said, I'm committed. I'm doing it the whole time now.
It looks great. It looks great. Yeah, so it's just a costume piece. I don't wear it all the time. If I audition for a dentist role, I'm not going to wear my hairpiece. But if I'm doing my impression show, I decided, not for nothing, it just sort of, I think it changes things a bit. It's a better presentation, more neutral presentation to have a head of hair. And so that's why I started wearing it in live shows and for some movie roles that it's fitting for. I wore it in Frost Nixon, for example. I think that's the only Ron Howard movie other than The Grinch that I wear a hairpiece.
All right, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions. We're at the 37-minute mark.
Woo. What's the record?
The record is Tom Wilson from Back to the Future.
He's got a lot to talk about. He's a wonderful painter, too.
Well, he is an awesome painter, man.
I like Tom Wilson's work a lot.
And he went an hour and a half.
And
I thought...
And rightly so.
And rightly so. Rightly so. But usually I do it like 30 minutes is always a sweet mark, but it's to the point where I don't really care. As long as people keep watching, I don't really care. I just try to keep it in there. But let me let this crowd go by and then we'll get on to it. But Jim, you have I'm not even going to say the number again because you have so many credits. I'm going to ask you this.
We should really check because it's been a little while.
It's 256.
256 and a half.
Okay, there it is. Give me your top 3 favorite bookings.
Apollo 13 for sure.
And that's just because of what the movie was, or
the movie is I think it's legitimately a classic.
It is. Absolutely.
I know that because subjectively, when I sit down and it's on, I really enjoy watching it, and I get as emotionally involved in it as anybody. Bookings? You mean just anything?
Just anything. I don't care if it's a voice gig or it doesn't matter.
When I got that first animated series back in New York, and they said, "Okay, we're going to hire you. You're going to be in this thing." I didn't even know what it would mean to me, but that was very exciting. And what else? I think my third one would be whatever the next one is.
I've heard this before. I asked somebody that question, and I didn't get it at first. He goes, whatever my next one is. I'm like, I don't get it. And then I'm like, oh, you want to work. You just want to work. You want to work.
And you know this, Clint, that the most exciting part of this job is when your agent calls or texts you and says, well, they've put in an offer. and you're like, you know, that's as exciting as it's all downhill.
Downhill from that.
Even the
I've
checks,
said
it doesn't
that for
matter.
years.
Yeah, it's so
That
funny.
day you book is the best day in Hollywood.
Because you've achieved something. And I realized too, because my daughter's now going through this, she's also a voice actress and an actress, and she just booked something the other day, and I watched her from the outside, and I went, wow, this is, the reason why this is so great is, why you get that booking. First of all, you know you're going to work, that's great, you know you're going to make some money, but the most important thing is, you tried to do something, and you did it.
Yes.
You were right enough to do it. You made a bunch of choices. You know, when to arrive, how to do it, you know, all this stuff. And you were right. And the rightness of that is very buoyant.
With all the actors in this town, they picked you.
Yeah. Miraculous.
That's big.
It's the lottery, for sure. Can I just talk about my viral video that's out
Please.
right now?
Oh, it's fantastic. It is fantastic. Let me say this. I was blown away by it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Well, it's very gratifying. I've had some viral videos hit before, but not in a long time. And I'm a real believer in YouTube and for actors putting up stuff and creating content. So this guy from England contacted me. He said, I want to make a deep fake video where you put celebrity faces on you. You're an impressionist. And I said, great. I got an idea. And we kicked things back and forth. And then we just put it up. And it's nearly 1 million. It'll be 1 million views pretty soon. It's only been a couple weeks. So that's legitimately, you know. And I'm getting all this comments and people from all over the world, people from the Czech Republic and Yugoslavia and Russia, and you know you can communicate with people. They write you something in Cyrillic, and you take it over to Google Translate. You find out what they said, because you don't know what they're saying. They could be saying, "I want you to help rig election. Please help me." And so instead they're saying, "Hey, really interesting technique, and you're a great actor," or whatever. And so I can write back to them in their language and put on.
That's awesome.
It's so cool.
Jim, when I was watching the video, remember when I saw this before, I just saw you share it. So I popped it on. I didn't read anything about it. I'm going, Jim is so good at these impressions. He actually looks like the guy that he's talking like. And then the second impression, I'm like, dude, this is real. This is something else, man. And like, wait a second.
Wait a minute.
Something is up, because he is dead
His
on.
nose
He
goes
looks. Yeah.
Robert De Niro suddenly becomes very, that's
So-
a little too accurate.
So the guy who did it, you've never even met.
No, I've not met him. I hope to meet him. He's in Manchester, England, and he contacted me. And now we've been helping one another, so it's very nice. I just got contacted by Britain's Got Talent. Thank you very much. See if we can do something with them. So
Okay, you were on America's Got Talent.
I was. That's another story, but yeah, quite an
Give me the
event.
1 minute version to that.
Well, it's a show. You know,
It is a show.
It's not really a competition.
It's not.
They have a lot. They have a heavy hand on it. They got a thumb on the scale, I think we would say. In
Okay, that's-
butcher parlance. And
Really?
the butcher industry is probably a pretty good simile. But it was not a comfortable experience. But I got to do what I wanted to do, which was be in front of 6,000 people at Radio City Music Hall.
That was
doing
big,
impressions.
man. That was
cool.
big.
It was nervy. And I felt like, okay, that's what I was after. So I had to go through quite a lot to get there. But
Okay, Jim, all the good stuff. Tell me, remember, this is professional only. Give me the darkest time in Hollywood for you. The toughest, the hardest. Give me
in terms of
just second guessing your career, having a bad audition, having a bad time on the set.
Many
not
stories.
Many stories, I know. But give me the one that pops into your head the first.
The one that popped in my head at first happened very recently, this year. And I won't go into too many details about it, but I will say that these days, the television shows and entertainment that is being sold is very different from what we grew up with.
Sure.
Right? In the old days, you didn't worry about a lot of things that you really should worry about today. Like, you could get in a show today and find out, oh, this is basically soft porn.
Right, yeah,
Right?
true, very
Now
true.
That did not happen to me, but another factor, I auditioned for something, I was overjoyed that I got the part. It was a self-tape, I did it at home. I'm like, oh my God, this doesn't get any better than this. They were going to pay me for multiple days, and I'd only work a couple of days, and it was a big network, and blah, blah, blah. But I had not read the whole script.
Yeah.
And it was super fast, and it was like, okay, we're booking you. Not only that, you go to wardrobe today. Not only that, you work tomorrow. And that evening, I read the script. And I found something that I found personally reprehensible in the script that would have knocked me out. I would have gone, I'm not auditioning for this. and it was basically as I say, I won't go into too much detail, but it was something personally offensive to me.
Okay. I do worry about stuff like this, so please go on.
But by that point, I feel like I'm already hooked because I've gone to wardrobe. I have a call tomorrow. I'm not the actor that goes. I've never had to pull out of anything before.
Yeah.
You know? So it was a tremendous moral crisis that I faced. And I've really spent the last few months kind of working through that, figuring out what should I have done, what would have been a better play, blah, blah, blah. I went ahead and did the job, but it was the most miserable time I'd ever had on set.
Really?
Because I felt like I was working for my enemy.
Okay.
So, is that vague enough?
Yeah, that's vague enough. Okay, wow. Okay.
So, it's interesting, but the point is, and what might be helpful to your other professional watchers, is that one just can't blithely walk into an audition or walk into an opportunity without really looking and seeing, doing a little due diligence. Because today, they can do anything on TV, any kind of opinion can be expressed, any kind of story or warped story or false story can be told. It's not just fun and a Western. It's not just a Western like when we were growing up, where it's like, well, it's a guy in a black hat and a guy in a white hat, you know, and it's not like that. And even then, we had some bad experiences. But
Jim, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's fine.
No, go, please. I was just going to say, a lot of actors are so desperate that they just say, okay, fine, take it, and then wait, what? What's it
But
about?
then you find out how desperate am I? Am I that desperate? And most actors I know are pretty aware and have a lot of integrity, and they're family people, and at the end of the day they might go, well, yeah, there's certain things I don't do. I'm not going to do that, and I can't sleep well knowing that's not. It would be like if, I don't know, imagine if I got a part, and part of the script, which I hadn't seen, maybe it's episodes down the line in a series, is like making fun of the creators of Happy Days. Or calling them sleazy drug addicts or something. Or Marion Ross is a hooker. Or
Right.
Whoa, no.
Yeah. Okay, wow.
So we need something on that order of magnitude. So you got to know before you go, because you don't want them to make an offer, and for your agent to get excited, and for everybody to be like, oh my God, this is great, and then you find out, oh, this is not so good. And that can happen in anything. It can happen in commercials. It can happen in audiobooks even. My daughter hit something that she found offensive, but she didn't find it until page 135. Like, oh!
Yeah.
So you gotta do due diligence, because it's not the world, it's an opinionated world, and it's a very fractured world. And it's great that everybody has their opinion, and it's great that everybody can express it in the arts. That's what arts are for. But if you're going to get on board that train or join that team temporarily, you better know what team you're on.
Okay, couple last questions, Jim.
That was kind of heavy, wasn't it?
No, it's all good. No, dude, we all, that's a good reminder. It's a good reminder because, like I said, we're so desperate. I'll take it. And then wait, dude, I'm not that desperate.
Like these commercials sometimes, like we're now of an age where the kind of commercials we get offered are, take this, and take this pill. I told my agents long ago, look, I'm not doing prescription drugs. I'm not doing that over-the-counter stuff. Just not doing it. I don't use it. I'm not going to do it. So by
even
mistake,
though they pay double scale.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's been that way for years. So
Yeah,
it's easy for me to
I
do
know,
that.
I know.
It's easy for me, and I am very solid about that. But by mistake, one time they sent me a script, and I looked at it, and I had not seen one of these scripts in forever. And it was the disclaimer on it.
It's crazy.
Was like, you may take this pill, fall asleep, and drive somewhere and not know that you've done it.
Right.
And I thought to myself, who would go down this road and say these words?
Yeah.
Who would have the lack of integrity to say, I don't mind. It's okay. Somebody, they might drive a little.
Yeah.
Asleep. And this stuff happens. I'm like, I can't do that.
I agree. Jim.
Even for double scale. Triple scale?
Well, that's different. What's a piece of advice that you've learned along the way?
Brush your teeth. Piece of advice about acting,
yes.
Well, the piece of advice that I always give is, if you want to be an actor, then there's really nothing in your way. And being an actor means create a character, do a show, create a monologue, do a play, get in front of an audience. That can be done without any Hollywood coming and nodding at you and somebody choosing you out of the throng. So get busy and be an actor, And then that's when people go, hey, would you like to be in my TV show, my movie? But if you're waiting and waiting and holding back and waiting, you know what, you can wait for eternity.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Jim, what is it that you want out of this business more now than ever before? Please don't say just continue working.
No.
What's the thing that you want?
I really enjoy having a positive effect on an audience. I like when people come up to me and say, dude, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
I like the end result. I like seeing where did that missile land.
Yeah.
You know, man. You know, like this video, the face changing video, a deeper look at the life of an impressionist. It's an unwieldy title. But when people all over the world write to me and say, "You're amazing," and that's an amazing poem you wrote, and you know whatever, I'm like, that's great because that came from me. Only I could produce that. And if they liked it and it brought them some joy and they liked it enough to write to you, you know, that means I've had an impact.
Yeah.
I like having an impact.
Well, you definitely leave an impact. I mean, you've always been on my radar, Jim.
Thanks,
So just
man.
know that. Jim, anything else I need to know
just
about
love the way you say Jim.
Jim?
It reminds me of my family so much.
Well, good.
The Texas family, all gone.
Well, Jim, before we shut it down, anything else we need to know about you?
Visit my YouTube channel and visit my wife's acting school if you're in Los Angeles. It's the best. The Acting Center,
Okay.
LA. Yeah.
All right. Jim, do me one last favor.
Sure, certainly. What
you-
you like? I know you want a voice of some kind.
No, well, you
Yeah,
could.
you do.
Well, Jim. Well, Jim, you could, or whoever you want to be, telling everybody goodbye.
I tell you what, this is George W. Bush with my good Texas buddy here, Clint. And for a minute, I thought you were Woody Harrelson. I came up here before. I didn't know what I was in for. But listen, watch his what do you call it, portable podcast?
Portable Clint.
Portable Clint. Watch his Portable Clint podcast. That's a good show.